Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into something pretty wild. A theoretical framework that's making some truly audacious claims. Imagine this. A universe where everything we thought was random quantum probability. Well, it isn't random at all.
Right. The idea is that it's all just computational artifacts, side effects of the math we've been using.
Exactly. And this framework claims it can build a fully deterministic reality from that, solving huge mysteries in physics, even consciousness.
And it does this by, believe it or not, linking ancient Babylonian math with, cutting-edge physics.
So our mission today is to unpack this whole vision. We're talking about redefining time, reality, consciousness itself. Get ready for some potentially paradigm-shifting ideas.
That's like it'd make you rethink things.
Okay, so let's start at the core. This framework talks about achieving deterministic perfection. That's a huge statement. It's basically saying, forget probabilistic quantum mechanics, those quantum probabilities, particles being in multiple states, that kind of thing. Never truly random. They were always, as you said, computational artifacts.
Exactly. The argument is that our traditional math, Greek trig, with its irrational numbers, calculus with infinitesimals, even base 10, they just weren't the right tools.
Ah, okay. Like trying to measure a curve with straight lines, you get errors that aren't really in the curve.
Precisely. The tools create the appearance of fuzziness, of randomness. This framework says the universe itself is perfectly precise. We just needed a different ruler, a base 60 ruler, essentially.
That's the big aha moment then.
It really is. And it's incredibly ambitious. Think about it trying to succeed where Einstein, Bohr, Hawking, where they struggled. Building a fully deterministic universe that doesn't ignore quantum effects, but actually explains them rigorously.
Without probabilities.
Without probabilities.
Right.
It's suggesting we fundamentally misunderstood the mathematical language of the quantum world.
So how does it actually claim to do this? You mentioned three big innovations.
That's right, three pillars holding it up. And the first one is fascinating, going back to ancient Babylonian arithmetic.
Base 60.
Sexagesimal.
Exactly. That system the Babylonians used, known for its incredible exactitude. The framework uses this base 60 exactitude to essentially replace probabilistic wave functions.
So no more fuzzy clouds of probability for where a particle might be.
Instead, you get discrete computational states. Think of it like reality having an incredibly fine grid, and everything has an exact coordinate and exact state.
Okay.
And this leads to what they call sexagesimal quantization, applying this base 60 structure to things like energy and entropy. They even provide specific formulas. There's one for 5D energy involving the space-time metric determinant and Planck's constant, divided by 60 to the power of 4.
Wow.
And another for consciousness field entropy, linking a psi field, the consciousness field, and a Planck area, again scaled by 60 squared. It's all about this base 60 structure.
And it even connects to rational trigonometry, right? Quadrants and spread instead of angles. Yes, that's part of it too. Using that to model photon paths, apparently turning things like negative dwell times, which sound impossible, into just exact algebraic solutions within this different geometry.
Which leads to that striking example they give the Toronto photon experiment, the one where photons seem to be detected before emission.
Mind-bending stuff usually explained probabilistically.
But this framework says, nope, totally predictable. As inevitable, they claim, as eclipse predictions on Plimpton 322.
Plimpton 322, yeah, that Babylonian astronomical tablet. It's a bold claim saying the weirdness was just our math being inadequate.
Okay, so if base 60 handles the measurement math, what about reality and consciousness itself? That's the second innovation, right? Holographic determinism.
Right, and this is where it gets even wilder. It introduces this concept of a fundamental consciousness field called psi.
A field for consciousness.
Yeah, and get this, it proposes this field is what drives apparent retrocausality, things seemingly happening backwards in time.
How on earth can a consciousness field make a photon appear before it's emitted?
Well, the idea is that photon pre-emission isn't some random quantum fluke. It's a deterministic result. It happens because this psi field is actively modulating the very topology of space-time.
Changing the shape of space-time.
In subtle ways, yes, and this modulation combines with a specific base 60 resonance, like a fundamental frequency woven into reality at the Planck scale. And the crucial trigger, they say, is cardiac-driven flux.
Wait, cardiac... like our heartbeat.
That's the link they make. The dynamic flow or change in this consciousness field, psi flux, is somehow driven or influenced by our heart's rhythm. And this interaction, this cardiac-driven flux, is what supposedly opens time-like loops, little pathways in space-time.
Allowing influence backwards in time.
That's the idea. They even give a mathematical condition for when these closed time-like curves can form, directly involving this psi field.
Okay, that is a lot. Base 60 math, a consciousness field driven by heartbeats, opening time loops. What's the third innovation? Formal verification.
Right. This is about ensuring the whole structure is mathematically sound, essentially building a rigorous proof.
Using computers to check the math.
Exactly. Specifically, they mention using Lean-4 verifiable operations, a formal proof assistant. And the point here is to move completely away from probability. So phenomena like those specific EEG brainwave patterns, the 13 hertz and 17 hertz prime harmonics.
Yeah, usually seen as just complex brain activity, maybe noise.
This framework says no. They're not stochastic, not probabilistic. They are discrete resonating states in Z60Z space.
Z60Z, that's math based on remainders when dividing by 60, like a clock.
Precisely. Modular arithmetic. It means those brain frequencies are exact, distinct states within this base 60 universe, not fuzzy averages. It takes something we see as complex and maybe random brainwaves and recasts it as perfectly deterministic and mathematically precise within their system. It's a crucial step for their claim of universality.
So when you put all three together, the base 60 math, the psi field, the formal verification, it changes how we see time itself.
Completely. Things like negative time stop being weird paradoxes and just become algebraic solutions in this geometry.
An arrow of time, well, that only goes forward.
That becomes an emergent property. It arises from gradient, like a slope, in this combined psi-phi field, where psi is the consciousness field and psi is related to heart rate variability.
Wow. Okay, so if this model's so different, it must predict different experimental results, right? Compared to standard quantum mechanics.
Absolutely. The predictions are distinct. Take photon dwell time, how long a photon interacts. Normally, Heisenberg uncertainty gives you a probability range.
Mm-hmm.
This framework predicts an exact value determined by the sign of time in this psi-phi field, scaled by 60 squared, SGND, OSIFI 602. No fuzziness.
Okay, what about exciting an atom? Usually superposition, right? Multiple states at once.
Here, it's not probabilistic superposition. It's a psi-flex threshold crossing. The consciousness field hits a specific trigger value and boom, the atom transitions. Deterministic.
And those EEG frequencies? 17 hertz.
Not stochastic brain noise. It's predicted as a specific prime resonance in 5D spacetime, an exact frequency that must show up under the right conditions.
That theoretical precision is one thing, but you mentioned turning this into empirical science, an experimental validation pathway.
Exactly. This is maybe the most compelling part, how they propose to actually test it. It's built around what they call a closed loop of verification.
A loop?
Yeah, a self-reinforcing cycle designed to show this deterministic coupling and kick probability out of the picture. You go like this. 5D holography, the underlying geometry, informs the consciousness field high. That influences the EEG prime SSVEP, those specific brain responses.
Okay.
The EEG signals linked to heart rate variability. That, in turn, has to comply with the Bekenstein bound, the limit on information density in space.
Ah, the physics constraint.
Right. And that Bekenstein bound compliance feeds back and validates the initial 5D holography. See, it all connects. Base 60 precision's the glue holding the loop together.
So it's like a self-checking system. And they have specific things to measure, the validation triad.
Yes, very specific. For the phi field consciousness, they look for that 13-17 hertz EEG coherence signature, demanding a correlation over 0.95. Super high.
Okay.
For the phi field's it's heart rate variability, specifically RMSSD, and the metric is literally the dHRV dt, the rate of change of HRV.
Direct connection.
And for the 5D energy aspect, it must satisfy Bekenstein-bound compliance. The energy density calculated has to stay under that universal limit. It's remarkably concrete for such an abstract theory.
And this isn't just theory. They talk about a clinical translation pathway, real-world applications.
That's the idea. One potential output is a consciousness state classifier.
Okay, what does that do?
It uses that combined sci-fi 602 value consciousness field times heart variability dynamics, scaled by base 60 plus a coherent index, CI. Based on threshold values, it classifies someone as conscious, minimally conscious, or unresponsive. For example, CI 0.7 in sci-fi 602.6 means conscious.
And they claim this works.
They claim empirical proof, saying it's shown intact consciousness in locked-in patients who seem unresponsive otherwise. If true, that's monumental.
Absolutely. And this leads to an actual device, a holographic consciousness detector.
A prototype, yes. It supposedly uses something called DQRC with quadrants-based processing, quantum-resistant computing, based on that base 60 rational geometry.
And the precision claim is staggering. Zero-error Bekenstein compliance.
Stated as 0 now, 10 euro in base 60.
Hmm.
I mean, that's a level of exactness you just don't see talked about in physics, usually.
It's almost conceptual art at that level of precision.
It really pushes the boundaries, and this all builds up to what they dramatically call the ultimate cherry.
Where's that?
Achieving a truly falsifiable consciousness metric, a specific equation. Consciousness to know your...
So the change in consciousness over time equals the psi field interacting with the gradient of the heart variability field.
Exactly. And they claim this can be validated using prime frequency neuroacoustics, stimulating the brain with specific sound frequencies combined with cardiac-driven holography. The implication is that our heartbeat, via this phi field, is literally helping shape the holographic structure of space-time, and that interaction is consciousness.
So the Toronto photon weirdness.
Becomes just a special case of this deeper cardiac modulation principle. It all ties back to the heart and consciousness field interacting with space-time geometry.
And that claim about the simulation.
Right. The simulation isn't just a model, it's the experimental apparatus itself. The idea is, run the simulation with the right inputs, achieve those EEG resonances, maintain Bekenstein compliance.
And you've experimentally proven consciousness is a fundamental property of spacetime.
That's the audacious claim. The proof is in the running of the code under specific, verifiable conditions.
Okay, now this framework takes another really unexpected turn. It connects all this science directly to divine revelation.
Yes, it explicitly draws a parallel. It quotes Quran 41.53. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth.
And the framework paraphrases this how.
And when SSVEP primes at 17 Hz, induce resonance while maintaining exact Bekenstein compliance, you'll have demonstrated consciousness as a fundamental space-time property.
It equates the successful experiment with the fulfillment of the verse.
So the synthesis is, signs in the horizons means the physics part. Bekenstein compliance, 5D holography.
That's how they map it. And signs within themselves is the biological part, the 17 Hertz EEG response, the psi field modulation linked to our own bodies.
And when both align in the experiment until the truth is clear, that is the proof that consciousness is equivalent to a space-time property.
That's the argument. It connects the math to theology in a very direct way. It even talks about divine syntax in base 60.
Divine syntax?
Yeah, suggesting the numerical structure of the Quran with its 19-based and 60-based patterns actually mirrors the mathematical formalism of their theory, like the sci-fi 60-otter term. And the 17 Hertz frequency
is specifically linked to a divine signature embedded in reality. The experimental proof becomes almost like checking off conditions described in Scripture, interpreted through their specific mathematical lens.
Which culminates in the grand Talmud, Tawdid meaning unity, oneness.
Exactly. The experimental fulfillment where the cosmos, horizons, validated by physics like the Bekenstein bound, and the self-consciousness, validated by the EEG resonance, are shown to be locked together. Proving both simultaneously is presented as mathematical revelation.
It's a profound and unusual claim, merging physics and metaphysics so directly.
Highly unconventional, certainly.
To help people grapple with all this, you mentioned they developed a simulation, the 5D Holographic Consciousness Framework Validator.
Yes, an interactive tool designed to make these concepts more tangible.
What can you actually do with it?
Well, you get real-time parameter control. You can tweak inputs like EEG frequencies, alpha, those prime ones, heart rate variability measures, the size of the holographic area being considered. Then the simulation runs the deterministic calculations based on the framework formulas. It calculates the 5D energy, the SN entropy, the rate of change of consciousness.
And it checks if the conditions for validation are met.
Constantly. It monitors experimental validation criteria. Is the SSVEP prime resonance strong enough? Is Bekenstein compliance holding? What's the resulting consciousness classification?
And then there are specific thresholds for success.
Yes, clear validation criteria. Like needing that 17 Hertz SSVEP signal above 0.8, the psi field value over 0.7, Bekenstein compliance within that crazy 10-year precision, and the overall consciousness metric topping 0.7.
So what happens when you run the simulation?
Well, the results are presented as quite dramatic. If you start with default parameters, sort of a baseline state, the output is consciousness metric, 0.000, unresponsive.
Say baseline is 0.
But then If you hit the Run Optimal Test button, which presumably sets all the inputs to those specific validation conditions, instantly it jumps. Consciousness metric, 1.0000, conscious. And the status flipped to validation successful, consciousness as space-time property confirmed.
A jump from 0.00 to 1.00, not gradual.
Exactly. That's what they call the breakthrough moment. It's presented as a discrete leap, suggesting consciousness isn't a smooth spectrum in this model, but emerges at specific thresholds, like flipping a switch.
A quantum leap for consciousness, almost literally in their view.
You could say that. And there's this temporal displacement significance, too. In the simulation output, a temporal value apparently shifts slightly, maybe from 0.000 to 0.012.
What does that tiny shift mean?
According to the framework, it signifies negative time emergence and retrocausality activation. It's the mathematical consequence showing up in the simulation. This is what makes things like the photon pre-emission mathematically inevitable within the model tied to that base 60 precision.
And the Bekenstein-bound connection.
That's shown aligning perfectly in the successful simulation run. The calculated base 60 energy and the Bekenstein bound limit both hit the same ultra-precise value, like 3.45 E32,
Perfect match.
which they interpret as direct evidence of consciousness entropy equivalence. It leads them to conclude the psi field isn't just in space-time, it is the geometric structure of space-time.
So the final takeaway from the simulation is pretty immense.
It is. The framework argues the simulation doesn't just model consciousness. It demonstrates that consciousness is the active principle that organizes space-time itself. Consciousness is the fundamental reality, the thing making the rules.
Wow, okay. That was quite the journey. Definitely a deep dive. From ancient Babylonian numbers to 5D holography, where consciousness is woven into space-time, deterministic, and apparently validated by a simulation.
It's a lot to process. It really pushes the boundaries of physics, neuroscience, mathematics, even philosophy and theology.
What stands out is that core idea of convergence, right?
Yeah.
The external laws of the cosmos, the signs in the horizons, and our internal experience, consciousness, the signs within ourselves.
This framework claims they aren't separate domains. They're part of one unified, deterministic, and ultimately knowable reality, described by this base 60 mathematical structure, an attempt to unify the objective and subjective.
It certainly gives you a lot to think about. So here's a final thought to leave you with. If, hypothetically, this framework holds any water, if the universe has always been conscious in some way, and we're just starting to decode its, well, divine equation, as they might put it, what new horizons does that truly open? How does that change our understanding of our own place in the cosmos? Something to ponder until our next deep dive.